that I don't have to hear myself talking to myself, which is never a good thing. So we are almost ready, and then we are going to get started here. Primary school in Italy. Excellent. Let's see here. Oh, that happened once before. Hold on a second. I'm gonna make sure that it is live.
On my end, it says it's streaming live on YouTube.
So what's interesting is I don't actually see it. On my screen, it says video unavailable. And here it says, oh, there it goes. There we go. All right, and I'm muted. All right, excellent. We are ready to roll. So without further ado, it is 5 o'clock, right on time. Let's do this, Randy. We're going to start our webinar. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. If you have not done so yet, please in the chat window, let us know where you are from and what you teach. That would be fantastic. And while you are doing that, Randy and I are going to introduce ourselves for our webinar tonight, Be an Author Month, which is super, super exciting. And just as a quick FYI, I do have another webinar at 5:45 my time. So that means that like 5:40, if I'm looking like I'm rushing everybody out of here, it's because I got to get to another webinar, all right? So don't mind me. Randy, tell us who you are, what you do.
Yes. So don't worry. We will not take offense to you kicking us out, John. I am Randi Ahrndt. I am the head of literacy learning here at Book Creator. I have over 15 years of experience in education. I've been an elementary teacher, principal, literacy coach, a little bit of everything, all things literacy. That's my passion. I also am a wife and mother to 3 boys, one of which is home. So I'm hoping he doesn't bust up in here. But anyways, I'm really excited about all the things we're going to share tonight and get you a little bit excited also about what else we can do in the month of March. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. And for those of you that don't know, I'm John Smith, Senior Teacher Success Manager here at Book Creator. So lots of webinars, conferences, school visits, keynotes, anything I can do to really just get people excited about Book Creator. That's what I'm here for. Married, I've got 3 kids, taught special ed for 12 years, tech integration for 7 years after that. And like I said, here I am at Book Creator, my 6th year doing teacher success. Love golf, got 3 kids, and I love dirty cars. So if you have a dirty car and you're anywhere near Ohio, come see me. I'm a certified auto detailer, and I will clean up that ride for you. All right? So without further ado, let's jump right in, and we are going to start talking about Be an Author Month. And here is our agenda for today. So what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about what is Be an Author Month, right? So if those of you that are on here, this is the first time you've heard of such a thing, we are not offended, right? It's kind of like a month that we made up. So we're gonna take with it, and run with it. But it is Be an Author Month. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about literacy and cognitive development. When I say we, it's the corporate we. Randy's gonna talk about literacy and cognitive development. We're going to talk about student voice and Book Creator, and we're going to share some of our favorite examples and resources so that everybody leaves here pumped, excited, and ready to go. All right. So what is Be an Author Month? Randy, you want to take this one?
I would love to. So as John mentioned, this is kind of a made up holiday, right? However, we talk about it so honestly at Book Creator that I literally had to Google it when I first started because I was like, is this really a thing that I just didn't know about? No, because March is reading month. March is also March into Literacy Month, amongst many other days throughout the month that are all focused towards literacy. So when they said, yeah, March is Be an Author Month, a huge thing. And I was like, yeah, of course it is. Thinking, oh my gosh, is there something I don't know? So it's an entire month at Book Creator where it's dedicated to student creativity, articulating their thoughts, and harnessing the strength of their voice. And that portion of it, that storytelling portion, is what we're really going to be honing in on throughout the month. So this started in 2022, and every year it just keeps getting bigger and better. And so we add more resources, there's activities, there's fun ways that students and teachers can participate from all over the globe. So it's not like you have to be just located in the US or abroad. It's anyone, anywhere. We really want to just harness the ability to have students turn into authors, to create and share digital books in a safe environment. And that also, and what I'll be talking more in depth about, is all of the research-based benefits of having students do these types of activities and how it affects our brain and our cognitive development. So really excited to share that.
All right, awesome. And so our theme for 2024 and Be an Author Month is finding, refining, and recording your voice, right? To share those amazing stories. And I love this big old right in the middle section here. Voice doesn't necessarily mean actual speaking. So I think sometimes kids get a little bit nervous. They're like, oh, I don't really like the way my voice sounds, or I don't want people to hear me, or I don't want to talk, or whatever. That's fine. All right. Voice doesn't always have to mean your actual speaking voice. It can be through words, it can be through drawings, it can be through all kinds of things. And that's what we're excited about here to talk about today. And we really do here at Book Creator really do embrace, right, the diverse modes of communication that there is out there with students, right, and teachers and people in general. And so, we feel that you need to leverage the technology, such as our platform, to ensure that students are able to share their voice in whatever way that is. All right. And that is really important in allowing those students to have the opportunity to tell their stories. All right. So here we go. All the smart stuff. This is all Randi. All right,
Drum
Randi.
roll, please. All right.
Literacy and cognitive development.
So let's talk about all the ways that literacy and sharing our stories actually make our brains better and smarter. So I'm going to quickly go through this because I know you're all not neuroscientists, either am I, but it's something that I think is really important for us to just have some knowledge base on. So this is our reading brain, they like to call it. There's 4 lobes that are involved with students learning how to read. The one thing that I really want us to focus on today and for the rest of is the temporal lobe, the green, the meaning, because that is what we are going to be focusing on mostly throughout the resources and things that we're sharing today. So next slide, please. So why is our temporal lobe, our meaning lobe, having to do so much with storytelling? Well, the reason is because when we make meaning, we make an image in our minds about what something means. So for example, in that little image there's a picture of a cup. We see that cup, and whether we call it a cup, a mug, a glass, we can picture it in our minds. Our brains can actually process that image in as little as 13 milliseconds. And just for comparison, when you read words, our brain does it very quickly as well, but it's an average of 250 milliseconds. So the more stories that we actually listen to, imagine in our minds, or see actual imagery of pictures, illustrations, etc., the faster our processing and comprehension actually will become. And so as we continue to want to visualize stories and as we look at images and create our own works, it actually enhances our brain like neurodevelopment. And one thing that I thought was really interesting is it's not just for the storyteller, but it's also for the listener. So there's been a research study and they compared brain activity from someone telling a story, like a really intense story, and someone listening. And the listener's brain almost exactly mirrored the person telling the story, just a little delay, like a few seconds delay. And when you tell stories, your brain activity lights up like a Christmas tree. And so it's crazy to think that if you can engage someone in a story where they are that much like visualizing it themselves, how much brain development that actually can create and how much more comprehension. So we're going to dive a little bit more into that on the next slide.
Right. And I think just as you're saying that, Randi, it makes so much sense too, because I think about like the teachers that I really enjoyed listening to and the teachers that I can remember and the lessons that I can remember always had some kind of story, right, attached to it. So it really does help deepen that meaning and that understanding.
Absolutely. And not only that, but children who listen to stories. So when I think about this, I'm thinking about our English language learners, our young students who may not be able to read text yet, as well as our students that can read, but maybe don't have as big of a vocabulary, or they actually are exposed to that many more words by listening to text. And so what that does is that brings that vocabulary to life. So if they are interested in the story and you're talking about photosynthesis, which might not be a word that very many students want or know what it means, they'll be more likely to want to Google that word, look it up in a dictionary, because they want to then continue to use that. And anyone who's been to any of our previous webinars around the science of reading know that a student has to be exposed from anywhere from 7 to 15 times with a single word in order for it to be stuck in their brain. And so when you think about that, they're listening to stories that are captivating to them, they're taking in that vocabulary, and now they want to create something with that. So it's like, okay, you've given me this knowledge. Now let me spit it back out. And that is what Book Creator is so impactful for. And so when we talk about storytelling, I want to really go in on the next slide to talk more about how that brain actually changes. So when we think about storytelling, as you mentioned, John, it's not just through oral communication, although that's like the most common, but it can be in text, it can be through visuals, pictures, etc. Like sky's the limit. We have emoji stories. I mean, we are in 2024, anything is possible, right? But it actually changes the chemistry of our brain when we listen to stories and when we are storytelling. So what happens is when we are storytelling or listening, cortisol actually gets released in your brain. And what happens is that cortisol is that feeling, that kind of like result of it says like of conflict, or increases attention and focus. So it's like, oh my gosh, I'm at the edge of my seat. What's going to happen? And so when you think about when you're reading a book and you can't put it down because you're like, oh my gosh, I just have to get through this chapter. Or you're watching a movie and you're like, oh, it's past my bedtime, but I won't be able to sleep if I don't know what happens next. That's that cortisol. Like you're all in now, right? So the next what happens is oxytocin is released. And that is your feeling of connection and your empathy. So John, right away when you're like, the teachers that I remember most, they always had a story. That's because that oxytocin was released in your brain and it made you have that memory that is stuck now. You have that meaning connected to that person, which releases the dopamine and your recall. So your comprehension is much more engaged. And so the more that you can visualize these stories, as I keep mentioning, it has such a neurological effect on you. And so when you think about students, young brains that we are all trying to, embed full of knowledge, and them being able to tell their story in whatever way they want and can captivate an audience, like how authentic and motivating that is. And so it's just really exciting that there is an actual like research-based reason why storytelling is so important, but why we really want to hone in on that at Book Creator for Be an Author Month this year.
Absolutely.
And so this is just a little bit more facts for you that stories can be so powerful that actually our brain activity is 5 times that of our normal activity if we were just reading words or looking at data. So again, stories really bring it to life, and that it triggers that release of neurochemicals. So it sharpens your focus. So the more that your focus is sharpened, the more your listening is there, and then the more you actually retain. So it's helping your brain, growing those neurons.
There we go. That's what we want. All right. So what does all this mean then, Randy?
Well, so here it is. So it's basically like learners who are engaged, they can verbalize their thoughts better. So they're better communicators. They're able to share their thinking in class. So when we have those students, we want to encourage them. Tell me what you're thinking about, even in math class, like, in book, record your voice. Tell me why you did it this way or why you think that this is the reason why. Because all of those things are helping to build those brain connections and build that temporal lobe, that meaning. Because the more meaning we have, the more context, then the better our comprehension becomes. And so all of this can allow for differentiation, oral language development, vocabulary enhancement. It's all aligned with the science of reading. So storytelling is really, really powerful, a lot more powerful than I think we give it credit for.
Yep, for sure. All right, so let's talk about voice. All right, and so I've got a nice little. I love this artwork here. I wish I could take credit for this. I did not draw this, but it does kind of look very similar, huh? All right, so there we go. So I want to share a little bit of a story, right? We're talking about storytelling, so I'm gonna tell a story. So years and years ago, I can't even believe like I have to say this, like more than 10 years ago, almost 13 at this point. I was in the classroom, and my students were really, really struggling, right, with writing and pretty much every subject. But writing, for whatever reason, was like their most painful thing, right? Like it was way more painful than math or science or anything like that. And so I couldn't find good ideas, couldn't find reasons or for the kids to write. Writing prompts that I tried were terrible and had zero results, right, for my students. They didn't want anything to do with it, right? They were just like, nah, these are boring writing prompts. They're from the book. Or, I thought it'd be really cool and go to the teacher store and get a writing prompt book that had 730 writing prompts in them. It didn't matter. All of them were awful for the kids, right? They didn't want to do it. But things started to change in their brains, right? When I started to say to them, you have a story to tell, and we can tell that story to a wider audience, right? Not just me, your old fuddy-duddy teacher, not just your moms and dads and aunts and uncles, but we can share this story with a much wider audience. And so then the kids were starting to come around, right? They're like, well, wait a minute, somebody other than you is going to pay attention to us. That's really cool, right? And the kids were like, let's do this. And it really changed, right? So not even just like the brain chemistry and all that stuff that Randy was talking about. Like we literally just hit them right with dopamine by saying, hey, you have a chance to tell your story and other people can see it. The kids were like, it changed the classroom dynamic, it changed behavior, it changed everything, right? Because kids had an opportunity. So for me, that whole thing, that's where my book creator story started, right? Was like, let's use book creator to do that. Let's tell the stories. And it made such a huge difference. And what we found in my classroom is that this ability that we have to publish our books out there for a wider audience made so much more meaning for them than taking it home and putting it on the refrigerator, which is why that's like crossed out, right? Like we're not putting work on a refrigerator. Now I always tease, I laugh and joke about this and say, you know what? I've got 3 kids. You know what's on my refrigerator over there, other than the dents, right? Is the student work, right? It's there under the magnets. So it is awesome, right, to do that. But with a tool like Book Creator, you can put those stories on everybody's refrigerator, right? And I call that the global refrigerator. And I think that's way more important, right? And it's quick, it's easy to do. And with Book Creator, you even get these really awesome analytics. So it's not even just, hey, kids, take my word for it. Other people are going to read your stories. You have proof, and you can say, look how many people read this in the UK. Look how many people in Ohio. Look how many people in Michigan and Florida and wherever are reading these stories. That is very powerful. And the more that we do that, the more chemicals and stuff in the brain are going to continue to be positive, right? And then the kids are going to be like, oh, wait, I want to do this again. And I want to learn more in whatever subject so that I can tell more stories. And I think this is really, really awesome. All right. Which brings me to a very special announcement right here for this evening. And I know that I have at least one friend, Anne, in the chat window, right, or on the webinar tonight, who has participated in things like this. All right. And so when my students started publishing books online and started sharing these out there with other people, we started talking about it. And I started talking about it at conferences. And I started using the phrase, the world is my audience. All right. And it was really powerful, this thought, right? That it's not just the teacher that's the audience. It's not just your parents. It's not just the trash can. It's the world, right? The world is there for me to talk to and share my story. And so I started using this phrase a lot. The world is my audience. And then one day, I remember just sitting there with, thinking, all right, my kids had published a few books here and there. I was thinking like, how can we step this up, right? How can we take this up to another level and get my kids even more engaged in writing, telling more stories? And it hit me. I was just like, ooh. And so I remember going out onto Twitter and I just asked a very simple question. And all I said was, I'm looking for one classroom from every country and every state in the world to collaborate on a book. Who's in? That was it. Like that was the tweet. And I had no plan. I had no idea how we were going to do this. That was just it. Like that was the question. All right. And that was so long ago that the online version of Book Creator wasn't even available. All right. So collaboration is even easier now. But I just remember asking that question. And the very first TWIMA book that we did, The World is My Audience, TWIMA, the very first book that we did had 28 classrooms. 38 classrooms from 28 different countries and states come together to write a book. And it was unbelievable, right? The experience was so amazing. And so we are officially in our 10th anniversary of the TWIMA projects, which is mind-blowing to me. All right. So we are on our 10th anniversary of the TWIMA projects. And I'm actually going to open this book just to kind of show you the theme for TWIMA 10. All right. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later. The theme is This Is Me. All right. So we want kids to go in and be able to tell their stories. All right. And here's an example book that was put together by our graphic designer. So we've got a little bit about Gavin, where he's from. All right. A little bit more information about where he's from and what he does, and then some hopes for Gavin for the future. All right. So Gavin put this awesome book together, and that is what we want to do. We want all students around the world to go in here and start creating their stories, right? Telling us who they are. All right. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Maybe, I don't know if this is the right place to talk about that or not yet, Randy. But we're going to start talking more about our website and where to find that information here in a little bit. All right.
And
Um,
I love that you are sharing this, John, with everyone because the Twima project is so impactful. When I think about like you mentioned, like 10 years ago, right? Things were a lot different. Like every child that I know of between the ages of 7 and 12, like what do you want to be when you grow up? A YouTuber. And the reason is because they want to share their voice with the world. And so my kids are on YouTube. I know like everybody's children at some point in time are on YouTube, YouTube Kids, watching kids build Legos or opening toys or whatever it is that they do with their spare time. But I think it's so empowering because this is a safe platform for them to do it on, right? Like that's one of the biggest fears I have with having my children and students on the internet is because you just don't know. And that's one of the fears that we can like take away with projects such as this because we know that it's safe. We know that they have a platform to share their voice in whatever way they want to. But I just wanted to mention that because I think it's really powerful because students today do have the ability to go on and share their voice in multiple formats. So giving them one that has kind of all the bells and whistles like Book Creator is like a one and done.
yeah, absolutely. And I think what you just said actually goes very well with the next page that I wanted to talk about in our book here. And I think what's really powerful about um, using Book Creator and this platform, Tweema, Be an Author Month, all of that stuff that's really cool. It's important because we allow for that diversity, that equity, that inclusion. All right. Too often, and I'm sure that I was guilty. Randy, I'm sure you were guilty of this too at some point, right, in our careers. We gave students an opportunity to share their story, but it was almost always in some little box, right? Like it was like, this is how you're going to share your story. This is what you're going to talk about. This is, whatever. So it was almost like this, like fake, like atmosphere, right? It was like here's what I have for you to tell your story, and that's it. That's your choice. All right. So just as much as diversity and inclusion is important, right, in representing children, adults, cultures, things like that, just like that is important, it's almost just as important too to have the right tool that allows kids to have that opportunity, right, to tell their story and to be able to represent themselves, right, and be able to represent their cultures and things like that. And we really believe that here at Book Creator, right? It's one of our core values is just allowing representation for everybody. All right. And so we are super excited about this. I don't know if you have something else here to add to this. We do have a link to Ken Shelton's blog post on why representation matters. It is a great read. I highly recommend taking a look at that. We'll share a link to this book out near the end of the session here today.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important, John, everything that you just said, because although we know that we're trying as a world, as a nation, there are still so many underrepresented characters and stories. And so if you don't find them, which chances are you won't, that look or act just like you, create your own, put yourself in a book. And we
Absolutely.
have the ability to do that. And so that's what's powerful.
100%. And I think some of this goes along with the quote here too. I love this. Sean McGusker spoke at our booth a while back. I can't remember which conference exactly that it was. But he said if you gave a bucket of Legos to a group of children, right, and you asked them to build something, they would all be able to do it, right? That's how easy using Legos is. Nobody really teaches kids how to use Legos. They just find a bunch of bricks and they start putting them together, and then pretty soon they're building stuff. Easy. That's what Book Creator is, right? Especially for storytelling. It's like the Lego of storytelling, right? So there's not going to be a lot of this. And some of you who maybe you haven't used Book Creator before or have limited experience with it, this is not something that is going to take forever for your children to figure out. This is not a 3-week lesson plan. This is not, anything you're going to have to stress over. And it fits right in with this page, learning through play, right? A lot of times people ask me all the time, they're like, well, okay, you just taught us Book Creator. That's awesome. How do I teach the kids? And the answer is I don't. Like, I usually just let them push buttons and play. And eventually they're going to figure it out. And usually when I say eventually, it's like 10 minutes max, right? Before kids are figuring out how to push all these buttons. So if you're thinking, oh, storytelling, that sounds daunting, like it's not. Like, give your kids 20 minutes to push buttons, let them figure it all out, and then hit them with the good stuff, right? And then they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I can tell my story. This is really awesome. So I'm excited about that. All right, real-time collaboration. Randy, you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I think one of the really fun abilities that recently was added into Book Creator is the ability to turn on collaboration. And so you can have students working on a book together. So if you have, your higher performing students and maybe your lower performing students or students that are not motivated or engaged, partner them up, put them in groups. The other really nice thing is that you can collaborate with other educators. And so if you are a interventionist or a special education teacher, someone doesn't have your own core group of students, you can collaborate with another teacher's library or all the teachers' libraries, and to support your students in that way. And so we know that right now, differentiation, interventions, especially with third grade reading laws popping up all over the country, like students have more than one teacher. And so giving them the ability to collaborate on a single book to keep track of what their students are creating, to motivate them, to leave feedback, all of those things can happen now just as easy as they do in like a Google Doc, right? It's real live time, working together, building that community and building that connection.
Yeah. And I think too, when you're telling stories, some of the best experiences that I have had are those collaboration moments, right? Where the math teacher and the English teacher and the art teacher and the science teacher are all working together to tell this story, right? So like you can weave in all kinds of stuff, right, in there that your kids are going to it's really going to get them. All right. So absolutely love this. All right. Next, some examples and resources. And so I mentioned it. We've talked about it a couple times. So now we're going to show it to you. We have a brand new Be an Author Month landing page, all right, on our website. And it is going to look like this. All right. So this is super cool. All right. So Be an Author 2024. We've got tons of resources in here. We've got links to all of these upcoming webinars that we've got. All right. So really, really awesome. I'm doing one with Nice Skate. We've got Michael Hernandez here doing one for us. We've got Patrick Rogers. So many amazing. New Caney ISD is going to be joining us. And of course, obviously, we've got Randy and I, right, talking about all of this good stuff too. So this is your place to go, right, for all things Be an Author, including a whole section here filled with teacher resources. We're going to talk about some of these here in a minute, I think. We also have our Tweema page. So if you are interested in this whole idea of Tweema, when you click on the Tweema page, it's going to give you a whole bunch of really cool stuff, including this video that I made. But then Dan Kemp, who's on our webinar here tonight, really made cool, right? Like, so it was really neat to see the cool stuff going on there. But lots of information, how it works, how you can submit all of that information here. All right. And what's even cooler about this, I'm really excited about this. So especially Randy, since you brought in the science piece, right? And how storytelling really transforms the brain. Once all of this Tweema stuff is submitted, right, from teachers and students from all over the world, once it's submitted, we're going to pick some of our favorites, and we are actually going to have a global read aloud webinar, right, where we're going to have children reading their stories to children from all over the world. So just imagine, right, we're writing it, we're telling it, those brain things, the connections, all the dopamine and all the cool stuff that's going on in the brain is just going to be unbelievable and through the roof when we have our global read aloud. So we're super excited about that. Again, teacher resources, tons of ideas in here, tons of things that you can actually remix and put straight into your own library so that you can use those with your students. A little bit more about what it is, and then we've got some awesome activities, including our new March journal, which is going to be coming out soon. So if you've used the January journal or the February journal, we've got a March one coming out, and it's going to be cool too. All right. Randy, anything else you want to add to that while we're here?
If you just keep scrolling down towards the bottom of the page, one thing I wanted to mention is this year we also are really encouraging partnerships with other great ed tech tools. And so, for example, with that March journal that John just mentioned, we are doing one of the days, March 20th, is World Storytelling Day. Like, doesn't that just, again, that's not made up. Being Author Month is, hey, we'll take it. We're doing a project with We Video. So using some of their platform to embed within a book creator book, again, to have students share their story. And so just doing some really neat app smashing capabilities as well for those of you that are wanting to kind of heighten your capabilities. But we're just so excited for all of these partnerships and all of the resources. They're going to keep dropping throughout the next month. We want to make sure that you have everything you need. There's going to be a whole how-to template for teachers on how to write a personal narrative if you want to go through the whole writing process. We've got little examples of like, okay, if you're going to interview someone in your family and ask them questions. And I mean, just a little bit of everything, because we really just want students to feel empowered in whatever way they are, and teachers to feel empowered to have their students create something. And so all those examples are remixable that are in that library, meaning you get a copy that you can completely edit or just share the whole thing with the students in your classroom. So some of you, I know it's overwhelming when you see just a blank book. This will allow you to have the power of sharing that with your students without the overwhelming, like, but I'm not a graphic designer. I feel that. I get that. So
I've
we're just
I've
so
gotten really
excited.
good at taking other people's designs, Randy and
I know.
Gavin, and making my own. So yes, good job.
Yes.
All
So
right.
we're just very excited, very, very excited to share this out and get students becoming authors. We also have a very special milestone that's going to be announced and we're going to celebrate in March. I can't give away what that is, but it is phenomenal, like mind-blowing phenomenal. So stay tuned for that because that will also be released along with some other really cool things that are happening. So we know that there's more than just one library full of books for students. And we know that creating stories doesn't just happen in the month of March. And so we want to, again, continue to offer resources, ideas, like don't reinvent the wheel. We're all educators, but take it and run with it, right? And so one of the things, again, if you have not gone in our Discover page on our website, please do that. When you log in, you normally go right to your teacher dashboard with the 3 lines. If you go to the 3 lines and then at the top, you'll see Discover. Check it out. Those are all remixable templates in the first section that you can, again, make a copy, add it to your library, and then it's done. So we really want to focus on that because there's so many amazing ideas. If you have a great book that you'd love to share, please submit it to us. We have users all over the world that are submitting books to us and we're adding them to this Discover library for others. So if you feel that you have some amazing ones that you wouldn't mind sharing, please, please send them our way because we are always looking for ways to support the various things that we all could use Book Creator for.
Absolutely. All right. So, and it's not just for students, right? So I think that's important too. Finding your voice isn't for teacher or just kids. It's for teachers too, right? We have to be able to find our voice and we have to be able to teach and share things the best way that we can, right? And so we have tons and tons of resources. Again, like Randy said, in that Discover section, you're going to find a section down towards the middle-ish bottom. That's all books written by ambassadors, written by us, written by teachers, things like that. So like books like supporting language learners, all right, using collaboration, differentiated learning, all right, the 5 pillars of literacy. I know somebody in this room who wrote that one, but so we've got lots of great ideas here too. Maybe you're a tech integrator. I think I saw somebody mention earlier they're a tech integrator. Then maybe this district and schools toolkit book, right, is something for you. So you can help find your voice and how to get others, right, to share their stories. All right. And like I said, it's not just for teachers or students, it's for everybody. So, Randy, what about students? How are they finding their voice?
Yeah, so again, with some teachers, it is, giving a student a blank page. It's like, oh, I don't know what my students might end up with. And so these again are just remixable examples. You could have them start with the All About Me journal, have them go through a book creator and me, just little activities, get them familiar with the book creator tools. This is a nice way to kind of let them play while still giving them that guided learning. But again, this is again having students getting them the opportunity to find it in a structured environment. So then in the next pages, we have how you can refine your voice. So now that you're familiar and you kind of get an idea of book creator, how can you refine that? And for teachers, what that might mean is just putting in your voice, your physical voice for instructions, getting more details out on a page. This, I know, John, you've mentioned many times, having to repeat the directions 500 times for students, where you could record them once and just be like, just listen again.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like it sounds simple, right? But like the first time I did that, it changed my whole classroom because instead of the kids raising their hands and asking questions or not raising their hands because they were too scared to ask questions, all they had to do is click the record button and listen to me give them the directions and they could listen to it over and over again, right? So this is really powerful. And I love the variety of ways that you can refine your voice, right? So again, it's book creator, but that doesn't mean that it's just like for English language arts teachers, right? Book creators for everybody and telling your stories for everybody. Maybe it's a science notebook, maybe it's a journal, all kinds of stuff. I love digital citizen, right? There's so many options in here. All right, and
And
here's an option for students.
yes, for students too, like, okay, so now how can they refine their voice across subject areas? So one of the things that they can do is just have like an ongoing journal or perhaps a science activity notebook that they do throughout their science experiments, or maybe they're doing a biography. These are just examples of some of the ways that students have taken this and created stories with their voice and refining it in a way that is really impactful. That stuffy stories one might be my new favorite. It's these little like kindergarten students, they use chatter picks to tell how their favorite stuffed animals, how they like are loved by their, oh my gosh, it's just adorable. And again, just finding those unique ways to get like students excited about sharing stories. That's really what this is all about.
I love it. Absolutely. And then finally, for teachers and students, the ability to record your voice, right? And so being able to share that. This one right here, very personal to me. This is one of my favorites. This is our Social Skills Volume 1 book, all right, written by some fourth grade students and a speech pathologist, and just talking about how, the right way to do things, right? The bad way to do things, because these students really needed help with that, right? So they were able to record their voices through video and audio and kind of explain all of that. We've got education performance tasks, right? The students are doing, sharing their voices, portfolio work, this amazing alphabet book that Randy helped build, right? There's just so many options for students to record their voice and put that out there.
And last but not least, as John mentioned, voice isn't necessarily your speaking voice. And so the book in the middle right there, Help the World, is from a little girl who is deaf, and she's sharing all the ways you can help the world by signing. And so again, having that multimedia, being able to share her story and still get it across to the world is just so impactful. Another one, the Big Book of Nursery Rhymes, is from a school. I can't remember where it is. I think in Russia, maybe. Yeah, Russia. And they were doing American nursery rhymes, but then also showing like what they are in Russian. Like again, sharing these with the world. It's just so impactful to see how excited students can be when they have that platform and that ability.
Absolutely. And like we said already a couple times today, it's not just English language arts. There are so many ways that students and teachers can share their stories during Be an Author Month, right? We can add that excitement to every subject that is out there. All right. And then finally, one of our last pages here, we're just curious to see, right? What will you create? What will your students create? So we are so excited about this month. We're so excited about the TWIMA projects and everything that we've talked about here today. I am going to put the link into the chat window right now to this book. So if you're interested in kind of reviewing everything that we talked about, you can certainly do so. But we are just really excited. Your voice matters, and we cannot wait to hear it. We cannot wait to hear what your students have to say. And again, keep your eye open on our website here for more and more resources and updates. And if you are really excited about the TWIMA project 10th anniversary, like I am, keep your eyes open here because it's going to have more information about submitting and the template. If you want a template and all that good stuff, we can't wait, right? So I'm excited. I know Randy's excited. We hope
Yeah.
all of you are excited too. And so I know we have about a minute or so left, but if there's any additional questions about what we have to say, throw that into the chat window. If you're excited, put that into the chat window too. And if you have any technical issues, right, about Book Creator that you might have, I know I had a couple of those kind of pop up. We didn't have a lot of time to answer some of that. Your best resource is our support.bookcreator.com website. It's got step-by-step guides to help you through all of that. You can also email support@bookcreator.com if you have questions. But I'm excited. Dustin's excited. Ann's excited. I can see a lot of excitement there in the chat window. We're pumped. Thank you all for being here. The recording to this webinar will be live on our YouTube channel later tonight or probably tomorrow. But we're excited to see everything that all of you create and your students create. So, Randi, any final words before we head out of here?
I just want to say that I'm most excited that Be an Author Month acronym is BAM, because that's how I feel. I'm so excited to just share our stories and hear from so many children around the world and teachers. So please, please, please participate, share with us. We are excited. If there's resources that you're looking for, let us know that too, because I guarantee someone's already created them and we can find them for you.
And
So
that
please,
BAM might also be the same noise that the kids' brains make when all of those chemicals are helping explode their neural pathways, right? For all that learning that they're doing. So
right.
it's super cool. All right. I hate to run, but I've got another webinar in 5 minutes. Thanks everybody for being here. Be safe out there. Happy bookmaking and have a great Be an Author Month in March. All right.